Hey guys, AJ for Film Noobs here to bring you all the news in Hollywood and the film industry all around. Now, if you listened to our last podcast with David, Johnny, and I, you know that we are looking at changing up the format just a little bit, trying out new things. Last week, David had an interview with writer-director Avi D'Amico. So if you haven't checked that out yet, please check that out. There'll be a link down below and somewhere around here probably. But myself, I wanted to bring up a little something different, try the video format out a little bit more heavily, and bring you guys all the film news that maybe you missed, maybe you haven't heard, or maybe you're keeping up with and it's just getting lost in the sea of other social media posts. So every month I will be right here at my desk and talking to you directly to bring you all the film news that I find interesting, that I think we might cover on the podcast or anything else like that. So to kick it off, first up on the list, we've got the Final Destination Bloodlines trailer. Now, we've known that they're working on a new Final Destination film, the sixth installment in the series, which is kind of crazy to think about. But now we're looking at a new take instead of a initial accident that someone sees a premonition of and escapes and brings a bunch of people with them, and now death is taking them one by one. We're looking at something a little bit different. This film follows a college student whose name we still don't really know, but their grandmother had their own run-in with death in the 60s, it seems, and they escaped. They brought some people with them, but they still escaped. Contrary to a lot of the Final Destination movies, they didn't die in the last 5 seconds. So now they're alive. They've had their own family, and they're 3 generations now, hence the title Bloodlines. So now we have this college student and her grandmother, and death is hunting them down one by one. The trailer kind of promises a lot of the things that we come to expect from Final Destination films, these really anxiety-inducing kind of Rube Goldberg death machines that come around. The main point of the trailer focuses on a barbecue scene, and there's things like glass and ice bucket, a rake under a trampoline that people are bouncing on, and just threats all around, like a barbecue getting ready to explode or catch fire or something. The trailer's kind of wild. Please go check it out for yourself.
Death is coming for our family.
But the other big thing that we got confirmed from this trailer and from a couple pictures that are being released is Tony Todd is back. This is unfortunately his final role. This was his final acting role before his passing in November of last year. But he's back as William Bloodworth. We saw him in Final Destinations 1 and 2 and 5. Tony Todd also had a brief voice performance as the devil attraction in Final Destination 3 right at the beginning before they get on the roller coaster. So his mark has been left on this franchise since the beginning. He is always there as the mortician or the undertaker, and he's giving these really vague hints about what death is, what death wants. And he's usually the kind of key to get the protagonist to figure out, oh, death is coming after us one by one. Let's figure out a way around this. Will we get more of that? Probably. There's been some hints online that we're going to see a little bit more about Bloodworth's background. Who knows how much that really is true? We'll have to wait and see. Now, from the trailer and the pictures that we've seen, Tony Todd did look a lot thinner than we're used to seeing him, probably due to his health and his condition towards the end of his life, this being one of the last things that he shot. So we'll have to wait and see really how much they were able to do with him. I don't know the specifics of how sick he really was towards the end and how much they were shooting with him. So they might have had to shoot around that, might have had to change some things. So we'll see, but I'm really looking forward to this. Honestly, I'm just here for Tony Todd's voice and more cheesy, gory, just over-the-top kills that we see from Final Destination. Next up on the Disney side of things, we've got the major Snow White flop that's come out. Now, Snow White is the latest installment of these live-action classic tale remakes that they've done. We've seen everything from Maleficent to Lion King and a really weird sequel to Lion King that never existed in animated form. And just a whole slew of other remakes and relaunches. You've heard our takes on the show about that before, but obviously the fans aren't really fans of this one. We've seen one of the lowest opening weekends in a Disney film, with Snow White opening with an opening weekend of $43 million. That's the second lowest opening weekend, at least domestically, for a Disney live action film. The only other thing lower than that would be that weird Lion King sequel, Mufasa. No one wanted to go see it. People were kind of against the Snow White film from the beginning. The second they announced Rachel Zegler as Snow White, people got up in arms. Now, rather, that's just the regular Twitter army of toxic masculinity and racism. Who really is to say? I do find myself in that camp of Rachel Zegler was an interesting casting. I do think she's got a beautiful voice as a musical nerd, but I don't know if she was the best casting. We'll have to wait and see. I have yet to see this movie. Visually, I have a lot of issues with the Snow White outfit. It's iconic as it was. It's been recreated over and over again for different movies and other cartoons and everything. Why they changed it now, they tried to like modernize it to an extent. I don't really get it, but you know, they did what they do. Now, Gal Gadot also is in this movie as the evil queen. Visually, I think she looks great. I think she has the perfect look for the evil queen, but according to reviews online, her performance is just falling flat. No one really likes it. This is kind of leading people to say that Gal Gadot is one of the worst actresses of our time. Now, is that true? Let us know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with that statement? Have you seen the movie yet? Like I said, I haven't yet, so I will bring my opinions to the podcast whenever that comes out. But all in all, this movie was just a huge flop, not to mention the things that Rachel Zegler said in the lead up to the movie coming out. Things like, oh, I don't want, my Snow White isn't going to be rescued by a man, and she's not going to be some helpless damsel. Kind of mocking the original movie from 1937, one of the original animated films that we all grew up with. I don't know what was going through her head when she said that. It wasn't a great idea. I get where she's coming from. We do need to modernize a lot of these stories, make them a little bit more palatable to today's audience, but you can do that without making fun of the original story. There's a lot going wrong with this movie just to the lead up, but the numbers are showing people aren't loving it, and I guess we'll have to see what's next. This isn't going to end the slew of live action Disney films. We've got Lilo and Stitch coming out in May. We'll see how that one goes. Obviously, people, especially in my generation, are going to be swarming Lilo and Stitch. They're still a little bit on the fence about the way Stitch looks, if you've seen any of the footage coming out from that. But Stitch is a little chaos gremlin that people in their 20s obviously love, so they're going to go see that no matter what. Snow White was a little bit more of a niche audience. I don't think they found it, and I think the audience that they did have, they kind of alienized and ostracized, so it didn't go too well for Disney. Next thing, not a lot of news surrounding this one, but Christopher Nolan's Odyssey film is coming out in 2026. Now that's really quick, especially for something as big as the Odyssey. I am a major Greek mythology nerd, so I'm really excited for this. I just got over obsessing over Epic the Musical, if you've ever heard of that, but this one is going to be insane. One, it's a Christopher Nolan film, so we know it's going to be huge. It apparently has around a $250 million budget, which is wild even by today's standards. But it also has this insane cast. Now, I'm sure a lot of that $250 million is going towards this cast. But one of the things that came out this month is that we finally know who some of these huge actors are finally playing. Now, we've got Matt Damon, who the man himself is going to be playing Odysseus. We got Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Tom Holland as Odysseus' son Telemachus, Charlize Theron as Calypso, Lupita Nyong'o as Circe, and Zendaya as Athena. Now, I think some of those are a little weird. Zendaya as Athena, I feel, is a really young casting, but she kind of has this Zendaya has this air about her that I can kind of see carrying with the Goddess of Wisdom. Also, Charlize Theron as Calypso. I don't know. I feel like Zendaya and Charlize Theron could have been flipped. Charlize Theron is always a badass on screen, so casting her as the Goddess of War also would have been really cool to see, but I have no doubt that she could pull off Calypso really well. There's also some other major cast members of that: John Leguizamo, Mia Goth, Robert Pattinson, John Bernthal, tons of other ones that are floating around, and I have a lot of hard times figuring out what's real and what's not. There's just so many names attached to this thing. No doubt it's going to be amazing. Some pictures have already started floating online, including an official picture from Christopher Nolan with Matt Damon as Odysseus. So they're trying to build hype for it already. Like I said, it comes out in July of 2026. That feels really quick. We're going to see, they're already shooting. We'll see how quickly it turns out. If that gets pushed back, who knows? But it's promising to be something huge. John Leguizamo came out and said that Nolan's style of this is more of like an indie filmmaker, but with a crazy amount of money. He's saying that he's not really shooting this by committee. He's not listening to all these big name producers. He's doing what he wants this film to be. So we'll see what that turns out to be. Now, right before I made this video, I was getting ready to film this the other day, but then huge news out of the Marvel world. So, which if you've known the podcast for any amount of time, you know that is my bread and butter. But we got the Avengers Doomsday cast, at least part of it. There's no doubt that there are going to be more names coming out about this. But Marvel did this crazy thing the other day where they had a 5.5 hour live stream of just director's chairs showing each and every name that's going to be attached to this film one by one every about 12 minutes. That is an insane marketing strategy. I don't know who came with it. I honestly still am not sure if I agree with it or if I liked it, but it came out and it got the news buzzing, so it worked. But the names attached to this, some of this we were expecting, some of them are insane. So I'll just start going off the list because it is a long one. We've got Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Cool. Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. So we know that the Fantastic Four are coming back for Avengers after their film here in July. Got Anthony Mackie as Captain America. His film just came back in February of this year, so we know Captain America is still stuck around. Sebastian Stan as Bucky. Letitia Wright as Shuri, so we know the Black Panther cast is coming back. Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. They even gave him a tiny chair, which I thought was really funny. Wyatt Russell as the U.S. agent. Now, these are in order of the chairs. This isn't by franchise, so excuse me if this is a little out of order, but we got Ryan Russell as the U.S. agent, so we know the Thunderbolts are making it through. We have Tenoch Huerta Mejia, which as Namor, or Namor as he's pronounced in the movie, in Black Panther 2, he's coming back. That was really unexpected. And like I said, we know the Black Panther cast is coming back, but seeing Namor come back, that's going to be really interesting to see some of those interactions. We've got Ebon Moss-Backrack as the Thing. We know, again, with the Fantastic Four. We've got Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. I'm super excited for that. I love the Shang-Chi movie in the Ten Rings when it came out. They did leave it off for a much bigger Avengers crossover. So I'm glad to see them pick up that story and see where the Ten Rings really play into that larger story. But we haven't really seen them. So I'm going to bet it's going to feel a little shoehorned, but hopefully they pull it off. We've got Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, Black Widow's sister. Got Kelsey Grammer as Beast. Now, we saw Kelsey Grammer's Beast at the end of the Marvels and their post-credit scene. It was super quick, and it blew up a lot of minds and a lot of theories. So we'll see how that universe is tying into this one. He was there with Captain Marvel at the end of the movie, and so we'll see how he really plays into that and how they start crossing over. We know that Doomsday is probably going to lead to some sort of incursion event like they've hinted to in the Loki TV series, so we'll see what that really looks like. We've got Lewis Pullman as Bob, or Sentry. We will see him in the Thunderbolts movie coming out here in May. We'll see how big of a character. They're hinting that he's going to be a villain, but given the comic lore and what some of the trailer footage looks like, we're probably dealing with some sort of split personality deal, and we'll see how he plays there. We've got Danny Ramirez as Falcon, so the new sidekick to Captain America, and what they hinted to at the last Captain America movie was him becoming a full Avenger. We've got Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, Fantastic Four, David Harbour, Red Guardian, more Thunderbolts, Winston Duke as M'Baku, who we know took over the throne at the end of Black Panther 2, so we'll get to see more of those interactions. Hannah John Kamen as Ghost from Thunderbolts. Tom Hiddleston as Loki is coming back. Now, last we saw him was at the end of Loki Season 2. He took over the chair as the God of Stories, so called, and he's kind of holding all these timelines together after they destroyed the Sacred Timeline. So we'll see what happens with that, but I'm going to bet that plays a huge part in the Incursion event and all of these different universes coming together. Now, this is where we start getting into some of the crazy stuff. Patrick Stewart as Professor X. Now, we saw him in Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. He was playing an alternate version of Professor X, but that was the first hint at we were getting some of the mutants. And then it goes on to see Ian McKellen as Magneto. We have not seen Magneto since Days of Future Past. It has been a very long time, especially since we've seen him interact with any of the other X-Men. And so his chemistry with Patrick Stewart as Professor X has always been insane, so I'm super excited to see these people coming back. Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler. Well, we know Alan Cumming is coming back. Safe to assume Nightcrawler is who he's going to be playing, as he played that in X2. Now, he has said that he didn't have the best time on those sets. We'll see what they really... I'm curious to see what they did to get him to come back, but either way, that is not a name I expected to see, along with Rebecca Romijn. Now, Rebecca Romijn played Mystique in the original X-Men, so they are diving deep into the original X-Men lore, into the Fox universe. We know that in Deadpool and Wolverine, it was hinted that all these characters existed. In Multiverse of Madness, obviously, we know all these different universes exist, but we have yet to see any of the Fox X-Men come back, including James Marsden was also on the list, the Cyclops, one of the men who started it all. Like, The X-Men. I know they called Wolverine that, and yes, Wolverine will always be the X-Man, but Cyclops led the team. He was the guy. He was the pretty boy that Wolverine hated in the original X-Men. So I can't wait to see how he comes back. James Marsden was great in those films, so I'm really excited to see him come back. Channing Tatum is coming back. We saw him as Gambit in Deadpool and Wolverine. That is a wild casting. One, we never expected to see him in Deadpool and Wolverine to begin with playing Gambit. It was a dream fan casting that he was also hugely on board with, obviously, and he fought for. Ryan Reynolds helped him fight for it to get it to happen. He got his moment in the limelight as Gambit in Deadpool and Wolverine, but they're bringing him back for Avengers. Is it going to be a tiny little cameo for fan service? Probably, but I would love to see him do more of it. I will probably need subtitles because his accent is insane in those films. And then we get I'm assuming the two leading men of the movie, Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four, and the man himself, Robert Downey Jr., now playing Doctor Doom. Now, in the reveal, they did have Robert Downey Jr. come out himself, walk down the whole line, and sit and give us a nice, cheeky little shh, just to kind of keep everything quiet. I'm really excited to see what they do with this. I'm still up in the air about Robert Downey Jr. coming back, but I think it could lead to a lot of really cool moments. Him interacting with Spider-Man and Pepper and all these people that last saw him dead, and he was the leader and such an important figure to everybody in the MCU. So to see him come back as the villain, I think if they do it right, could be a really good character beat for all of this. Now, there's a lot of names missing. Like I said, Tom Holland was not, Spider-Man was not on this list. We know that they're working on Spider-Man 4, but there's a lot of names that we haven't seen. We haven't seen anybody from the Marvels, anybody from the Eternals. These are all open-ended storylines that they haven't touched on, and we didn't see in this list. So I'm assuming more announcements are coming, but we'll see what that all looks like in May 2026 when this movie comes out. Now on to a little film review. I know we normally save this for the podcast, but I wanted to touch on something really quick. I kind of want to do one of these once a month, just something I saw during the month. It might not fit into our normal podcast style or anything like that, but I want to keep the ball rolling with those film reviews. So one of the things I saw this month that came out recently was Mickey 17, a Bong Joon-ho film starring Robert Pattinson, Naomi Ackie, Stephen Yeun, Mark Ruffalo. It was a really fun experience. It was kind of absurd, really a lot of dark humor, but it was great, as I've come to expect from Bong Joon-ho movies. If you've seen any of his other ones, like Parasite or the 2013 version of Snowpiercer, you kind of know his style. I always find that it feels like his movies feel like they're multiple genres shoved into one, but somehow he makes it work. So I have enjoyed every single one of his movies that I've seen so far. This film in particular follows Robert Pattinson's character of Mickey, who joins a colonization mission to escape some debt collectors here on Earth. Now, they go on a spaceship. They are on a long mission to the ice planet of Niflheim, and Mickey is a quote-unquote expendable. He's a member of the crew that basically gets sent out on death missions, and every time he dies, they just print out a new copy of his body, complete with all his memories, so he's the same person that he was before he went on the mission. Now, there's a mix-up at the start of the film where he gets sent down to a planet, he falls into this big ice crevasse and is expected to die, so they print out the next version, Mickey 18. But on that planet, Mickey 17 was saved by one of the native alien species on this planet. That's oxymoronic, but one of the native species on this planet, and they kind of save him. They bring him back to the surface to where he's able to get back on the ship, and thus creates the problem of there's two versions of Mickey on the same ship, which in this world is a huge crime. And then chaos ensues, everything from them trying to hide each other or hide themselves from other members of the crew, so no one really figures it out. There's like the hint of a love square where Mickey's girlfriend starts getting jealous of this other girl who's also kind of into Mickey 17 specifically. But Mickey's girlfriend, played by Naomi Ackie, just really wants to be with both Mickeys. And she wins in the end. So it wasn't really a love. There wasn't really a conflict there. It spawned for all of 5 seconds and then they worked it out. So is there a world where there was a bigger storyline there? Probably, but who knows? And then, just the regular alien, we're going to take over this planet and nothing's really going to happen. Again, like I said, I think this movie was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. Robert Pattinson is insane with his voice work. if you've seen anything that he's done before, things like Batman, the Reverend from The Devil All the Time, the Gray Heron from The Boy and the Heron, all insane. There's not a hint of Robert Pattinson in any of those voices. It's really wild to see him work, and I think he's going to be one of the greats of our generation. And I'm glad to see he kind of escaped the legacy of Twilight. I'm glad he got out of that hole. Now, I do think, like I said, Robert Pattinson was great, but I do think Mark Ruffalo kind of stole the show. He plays the antagonist of the film. He's this dictator-esque, I believe he's a senator, technically, that decides to lead up this mission to Niflheim, but he becomes kind of a dictator on the ship. He's named Kenneth Marshall, and he just goes off the deep end completely. There is an interview with Mark Ruffalo where he said that when they shot this movie 3 years ago, that part seemed a little absurd, and there's no way any of this could ever happen. And now that he looks back at it now, they didn't go far enough. If you decide to see the movie, I'm not going to get too into politics here, but you'll know exactly what he's talking about. It is definitely a wild portrayal of a politician, and like the extent of like how crazy a person could be just for the sake of glory and for the sake of I'm going to do it because I can. Now, lastly, to close it out, I just want to leave you with a list of movies that you can go check out here in April that are coming out. There's a lot of movies coming out in April, so this is only a handful of them, but I just thought these are probably the most fun, the ones I have the biggest chance to go see, and the ones that we have the biggest chance of talking on the podcast. So if you want to keep up with that, definitely tune into the podcast and see what we checked out this month. First up, we've got a Minecraft movie coming out April 4th. It's starring Jack Black, Jason Momoa, Emma Myers, Jennifer Coolidge. That one was surprising. I don't know why. She seems to be dating a villager. It's a really weird storyline that's probably buried somewhere in there. But obviously, this movie is based off the critically acclaimed video game Minecraft. It has had a cult following since it has came out, and now that it's on platforms everywhere, just everybody's playing it. There's content constantly on the internet, but it's led to the point of the fact that we're getting a movie, and with a game with no story, I'm curious to see what they came up with. But with Jack Black leading the way and Jason Momoa also leading in the cast, it's bound to be really funny and really absurd. Next up, we've got Freaky Tales. It's an action adventure comedy. It's got Pedro Pascal, Ben Mendelsohn. That one also comes out April 4th. It looks to be kind of like an anthology film of different freaky tales that kind of all tie together here at the end. So should be an interesting time. We've got The Amateur coming out April 11th. That's an action thriller. It's got Lawrence Fishburne, Rami Malek. It looks like he's a hacker. So this looks like a slightly bigger version of Mr. Robot, Rami Malek's other series that he came out with. On April 18th, we've got Sinners. It's a vampire horror. It's a drama thriller. We've got Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, Jack O'Connell. It seems to be a vampire movie set in older America, old westy kind of vibe. We've just got a lot of music, it seems, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun times. Michael B. Jordan always steals the show, and it looks like he's going to be playing two versions of himself. He's got a twin brother. One of them looks like it's going to turn into a vampire, and that looks like it's going to be the really big emotional fight here at the end of the film. We've got The Accountant 2 coming out on April 25th. That's an action crime drama. If you saw the original Accountant, you know exactly what to expect. It's got Ben Affleck, obviously. J.K. Simmons also coming back. And John Berthnall. Again, John Berthnall, I think, plays always a badass, angry person. So it'll be fun to see him here as well. We've got Until Dawn coming out April 25th. Another video game inspired movie coming out this month. It is a horror video game. We got Ella Rubin, Ji Young-yu, a lot of other names I don't really recognize or remember at the moment, but it's going to be loosely based off the Until Dawn video game, which is more of a choose your own adventure style game. So it looks like this is more of a time loop story where there's a mass killer on the loose, and every time they die, they are repeating the day or something like that. I really hope they didn't get rid of the monsters in the game. That was a really big part. That actually ended up being the bulk of the story. So if they took that out, that's going to be really disappointing and a huge change to the Until Dawn lore. And then a fun mention I thought I'd throw in here also is Cheech and Chong's last movie. This one's coming out appropriately on April 20th, 420, with a limited release, and then everywhere again on April 25th. This is going to be a documentary more about Cheech and Chong's rise to fame and where they came from and how they got into what they're doing now. It's going to be starting, obviously, Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong, along with Lou Adler, their producer on Up in Smoke. So it should be a lot of fun times, a lot of really funny interviews, I'm guessing, and a lot of heartfelt moments too about just how far they've come in their journey here thus far. So that's all I have for you on the news today. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched this far, again, we are trying something new. So if you like this format, let me know down in the comments below. I'll be keeping an eye on that. Feel free to reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram. I will be doing my best to either reply or at least look at everything that is coming through on those channels, and just keep following along. Next week, you've got Johnny coming out with his own episode with his interview. And then we'll be back with another group podcast, and we're just going to keep the cycle going. So I'll be here once a month. We'll be here with the podcast once a month. And I can't wait to hear from you guys and to keep going with this. I hope you guys like the format, the change. If there's anything different you want to see, feel free to let us know, and we're going to keep experimenting and keep moving. This is the year where Film Noobs, we're just going to keep pushing and trying new things and keep hoping the channel grows. So for those of you who have been here from the beginning, I cannot thank you enough. And from those of you who are new, I can't wait to see you join for the ride. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, support indie film, keep watching films, and peace.